Every morning, Emily woke up before the sun. She lived in a small town called Maple Grove. Her job was at a coffee shop on Main Street. She liked making coffee, but she always wished she could do more. Emily was kind and hardworking, but inside, she did not feel strong. When her boss asked her to speak at meetings, her hands shook and her voice sounded so small. At home, Emily thought about saying yes to new things. She wanted to join a book club or try out for the local theater, but the idea of speaking in front of people made her heart pound. Sometimes, she looked in the mirror and knew she was smart, but she heard a small voice inside say, "Not you." That voice made her miss good chances. One day, her friend Jake called and asked if she could help organize the school fundraiser. Emily wanted to say yes, but her words got stuck and she just said maybe instead. Every day felt the same. Emily watched others share their ideas and win praise. She stayed quiet, even when she had something important to say. Emily knew she was stuck. She was tired of saying no to things she wanted. Deep inside, she wished she could be brave. She hoped for a day when she could stand in front of people and feel strong. But for now, she watched from the side and wondered what it would feel like to feel comfortable on stage. One gray afternoon, Emily cleaned tables at the coffee shop. She worked quietly, as always, listening to the sound of rain against the windows. Then, she noticed a group of people in the corner, watching something on a phone. They laughed and clapped. Curious, Emily walked closer. On the screen, a woman spoke to a big crowd. The woman smiled and stood tall, even when she made a small mistake. The crowd listened. Emily heard her say, "Everyone feels scared sometimes, but speaking up makes you brave. Even if you shake, speak anyway." Emily could not stop thinking about those simple words. Her hands wanted to clap like the people in the video. She cleaned a spill on the counter and remembered last week, when her boss needed someone to give a short talk. Emily had wished she could do it, but her voice had stayed quiet in her chest. Now, she wondered, could she learn to stand in front of people, too? Part of her was excited, but another part was scared. The old voice in her head whispered, "People will laugh at you." But the new voice from the woman in the video said, "Everybody feels scared. That is normal." That night, Emily watched the video again on her phone. She listened to the woman talk about taking small steps. "No one is perfect the first time," the woman said. "It gets easier if you keep going." Emily tried to imagine herself on a stage. Her knees felt weak, but she liked the picture in her mind, her standing tall, sharing her story. She thought about the things she always wanted to say. Maybe she could tell people about her favorite book or her idea for helping the coffee shop. For a second, she let herself believe it was possible. Emily went to bed with hope and fear mixed inside her. She promised herself she would try to do something small the next day. But, when morning came, her fears returned. At work, her boss asked if someone could welcome a guest speaker. Emily's heart jumped. She wanted to say yes, but the old thoughts were too loud. She watched as a coworker spoke up with an easy smile. Emily felt both proud of her friend and sad for herself. During lunch, her friend Jake visited and asked if she saw the video, too. Jake said, "I was nervous when I gave my first talk, but I felt better the next time. Emily listened. Maybe everyone felt this way at first. Maybe her shaking hands and fast heartbeat was part of growing braver. She talked with Jake about being nervous in front of others. He smiled and said, "It gets easier the more you try. Why not start small?" Emily wondered what her small first step could be. Still, a part of her doubted she could do it. What if she failed in front of people? What if she forgot her words? As the day ended, Emily walked home slowly. She saw children jumping over puddles, laughing even when they slipped. Sometimes they fell, but they stood up and tried again. Emily realized everyone has moments when they are scared or unsure. She was not alone. Holding on to that thought, she promised herself she would take a little step soon, even if she felt afraid. Just maybe, the first step would change everything. The next week, Emily walked past the community center and saw a sign for a beginner public speaking class. She stared at the poster for a long time. Her heart beat fast in her chest, and she thought about walking away. But the words from the video came back to her, "Everyone feels scared. Speak anyway." Her hands trembled as she took out her phone and called the number. When the voice on the other side answered, Emily almost hung up. Still, she managed to say, "I'd like to join the class, please." When she finished, she felt both proud and worried. On her first day, Emily wore her favorite blue sweater. She hoped it would make her look brave. Inside the classroom, there were 10 chairs in a circle. Some people looked just as nervous as Emily. The teacher, Mrs. Parker, smiled warmly at everyone. She said, "It is okay to be nervous. This is a place to learn and help each other." The group began with a simple task. Everyone said their name and one thing they liked. Emily's palms were sweaty as she spoke her name. Her voice shook, but she did it. No one laughed. Mrs. Parker gave her a smile and nod, and Emily felt a tiny spark of happiness inside her. The next challenge was harder. Each student had to talk for 1 minute about any topic. Emily's thoughts raced. What if she forgot her words? What if she said something wrong? It was her turn. She stood up and took a deep breath. Her mind seemed blank, but she remembered her favorite book, so she talked about that. At first, her words were quiet, but with each sentence, her voice grew stronger. When she finished, the others clapped. Emily could not believe it. For the first time, she had spoken to a group, and everyone had listened. Emily walked home that evening with a smile. She was still afraid, but now she knew she could do hard things. The small speech did not go perfectly. She said too many times. Her hands shook the whole time. But nothing bad happened. No one made fun of her. Her classmates even said they liked hearing about her book. That tiny win made her believe she could try again. During the next class, they learned about how to stand tall and not look down. Emily practiced in front of her mirror before bed. She tried moving her hands the way Mrs. Parker showed them. Her voice was slow at first, but then she found a steady rhythm. She even caught herself feeling excited to share her next story. The more she practiced, the easier it became to look people in the eye instead of staring at her shoes. Emily told Jake about her class. He was happy for her and cheered her on. At work, when her boss asked who wanted to welcome customers at the new shop event, Emily's hand lifted before she could think. She greeted people at the door, smiling. Her voice was a little shaky, but it was strong enough. Many customers smiled back. Some even told her she was friendly. That night, Emily felt proud again. She wrote in her journal, "I tried. I spoke. I did not give up." Each small step made her feel a little braver. She knew it would still be hard sometimes, but now she believed that change was possible, one small win at a time. One windy afternoon, Emily's boss called her into the office. He smiled at her and said, "Emily, I have something important to ask you. The town is planning a big art and business fair, and the committee needs someone to give the opening speech. They heard about the friendly way you greet customers, and they want you to welcome everyone on stage." Emily's heart jumped. Her hands got cold. She wanted to run out of the room. This was the chance she had always dreamed of, but it felt too big. Her boss looked at her and said, "You can say no, but I believe you could do a great job." Emily nodded, even though her mind was spinning. That night, Emily could not sleep. She looked at the ceiling and listened to her heartbeat racing in her chest. She hugged her pillow tight, thinking about all the people who would be there. What if she messed up? What if she dropped the microphone or forgot the words? She thought about how her voice sometimes shook when she was nervous. The image of everyone staring at her made her want to hide. Still, something inside her said this was her time to try. For the next few days, Emily carried her fear with her everywhere she went. She tried practicing her speech at home. She wrote her words on note cards and stood in front of her mirror. Sometimes she got all the way through, but other times she stumbled and lost her place. Her hands would sweat, her knees would shake, and once she even dropped her notes on the floor. Emily wanted to give up. She thought it would be easier to let someone else take her place, but every time she remembered the video from the coffee shop, she heard the woman's voice, stronger than ever. "It's normal to be afraid, but speak anyway." Her friends and family cheered her on. Jake dropped by and brought her tea. He listened as she practiced her lines. He told her, "Remember, it's okay if you make a mistake. People are wishing you well." Emily tried to believe him, but her stomach felt tight like a knot before a storm. The day before the fair, Emily stood in front of her class at the community center and gave her speech to the group. Her voice came out soft at first, but she made it to the end. Mrs. Parker smiled and said, "You're ready, Emily." That took a lot of courage. Even with all this support, Emily felt a wave of doubt as she walked home that night. On the morning of the big fair, Emily looked at her reflection. Her face looked scared, but her eyes showed a little bit of hope. She dressed in her favorite sweater, the one that made her feel safe, and put her note cards in her pocket. As she walked to Main Street, she could see the stage and chairs set up under balloons and bright banners. People were already gathering. Emily's legs felt heavy, but she kept walking forward. Each step was hard, but she knew she had worked for this. Her heart pounded, and her mind was full of worries. Still, When the event organizer called her name, Emily walked up the steps. With the microphone in her hand, the noise of the crowd faded. Now, all she had was this moment, and a chance to change her story. Emily stood in the bright light, her heart thundering in her chest. The crowd was bigger than she had imagined. She could see people from her town, some neighbors, customers from the coffee shop, and even her family and Jake waved in the front row. Her hands shook so much, she worried she would drop her note cards. She held them tighter, trying to steady her breath. Her mouth felt dry, and her legs felt weak like jelly, but there was something strong inside her, a little flame determined not to go out. The microphone felt heavy in her hand. She looked down at the notes she had prepared, but the words blurred together. For a moment, Emily wanted to run. But over the sound of her fear, she heard the good voices in her memory, Mrs. Parker telling her to stand tall, Jake cheering her on, and the woman from the video saying, "Everyone gets scared, but you can do this." Emily took a long breath and lifted her chin. When she spoke, her voice came out soft and a little shaky, not perfect, but real. She greeted everyone with a simple hello. She remembered to look up and saw some friendly faces smile back. Slowly, the fear started to fade at the edges. Emily spoke her first sentence, feeling the nerves, but she kept going. At one point, she stumbled on a word, her voice catching. She felt the start of panic coming, but this time, instead of freezing, she smiled a little and said, "Sometimes nerves get the better of us, right?" The crowd laughed kindly, and something loosened in her chest. She realized it was okay to make a mistake. The world did not end. People understood. As she spoke about the town, about the coffee shop, and about working together, her voice grew steadier. Emily remembered all the times she had practiced in front of her mirror, all the little speeches in the classroom. She was still nervous, but every word she finished was another stone added to a strong path under her feet. Instead of thinking about failing, she focused on the people who were listening. She saw Jake, her boss, Mrs. Parker, and even a little girl in the front row who reminded her of herself, quiet but curious. Emily wanted that girl to know it was possible to be brave, even if your voice shook. Halfway through her speech, Emily glanced at her notes, but she did not need them as much. She let her heart speak. She told the crowd how afraid she once was of speaking to anyone, how she hid behind the counter, worried about making a mistake. She smiled and said, "I learned it's okay to feel scared. What matters is trying, and not giving up." She saw the nods and hope in people's faces. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the whole crowd began to clap. The sound washed over her like sunshine after rain. Emily's body still buzzed with nerves, but this time it felt like energy, not panic. She had done it. She stood in the bright light with the microphone, feeling taller than she had ever felt before. For the first time, Emily believed those words she had always heard, "You can do this." And now, she knew it was true. As the applause faded, Emily looked out at the faces in the crowd. For a second, she could not believe what she had done. All her life, she had been afraid to speak up, afraid that her voice was too small. Now, she had just finished a speech in front of her neighbors, her friends, and even people she did not know. Her hands still trembled a little as she left the stage, but her steps felt lighter, almost as if she were walking on air. Jake found her near the edge of the crowd, grinning ear to ear. He gave her a big hug and told her how proud he was. Emily's boss came over too, saying, "See, I knew you could do it." Other people she had only seen in the coffee shop patted her shoulder and thanked her for her words. Some children waved at her, and one woman smiled and said, "You made it look so easy." Emily smiled back, knowing it had not felt easy at all, but inside she felt a new kind of strength growing in her. Over the next hour, Emily noticed something different. She was not hiding at the edge of the event anymore. She joined in for games, accepted compliments, and even chatted with some new people who asked her more about her speech. She realized that even though her voice had shaken and she had almost dropped her cards, those little moments did not ruin her story. Instead, they made her real. The fear had been strong, but her choice to keep going was even stronger. Each time she remembered the moment on stage, the memory felt brighter, not scary at all. Later, while walking home through the busy street, Emily thought about what had changed. The crowd had clapped, but her biggest prize was not the applause. It was how she now saw herself. She learned she did not have to be perfect to be brave. Even shaking and nervous, she could still step forward. Emily knew life would bring more hard things, but if she could face this big fear, maybe she could face others, too. At home, Emily sat down and wrote about the day in her journal. She described the feeling of standing under the bright lights, the rush of worry before the speech, the relief after the first laugh from the crowd, and the warmth of Jake's hug. Her fears did not disappear, but now they seemed much smaller. She realized all her hard work, the practice at home, the classes at the community center, and talking to people every day had led her to this point. With each little step, she had grown braver and stronger. That night, Emily felt different. She did not hide from her reflection. She smiled at herself, thinking about everything she could do next. The speech had been just words, but to her, those words had become a door to a new way of living. She promised herself that she would keep trying new things, even if they made her feel nervous. She understood that courage did not mean feeling no fear, it meant taking action anyway. Even small actions could change her path. Emily knew she might stumble again in the future. There would be days when speaking up still felt hard. But she had learned that giving up too soon meant missing out on new feelings, on pride, on surprises. Her voice was her own gift, shaky, sometimes quiet, but now full of hope. She decided that from now on, she would not hide in the shadows. She would say yes to more chances, trust her voice, and help others believe in themselves just like the woman in the video helped her. In the days after the fair, Emily noticed life felt different. She still woke up early, walked to the coffee shop, and made coffee for neighbors, but now she saw herself in a new way. The memory of standing on stage came back to her in little flashes, the warm lights, the shaky start, the crowd listening to her words. At first, she was not sure if anything had changed, but the feeling of pride grew inside her each day. It spread like sunlight, touching parts of her life she had never noticed before. When she looked at herself in the mirror, the face that once seemed too shy or too small now seemed brave and ready to smile. Challenges did not disappear just because she gave one big speech. On Monday, her boss asked if someone could help train a new worker. Emily felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the old doubt whispering that she would not be good enough. But instead of backing away, she said yes. She remembered the stage and the way her voice had grown steady as she kept speaking. When meeting the new worker, she showed him how to make coffee and explained how to greet customers. Her words were simple and sometimes she tripped over them, but she kept going. When he thanked her and smiled, Emily felt a little flash of courage, as warm as her first applause. Emily started writing down her feelings more often, filling pages with her thoughts and hopes. She wrote about her practice sessions, her first lesson at the speaker class, the claps after her speech, and how fear felt heavy but never stopped her steps. She wrote little notes for herself, reminders that courage could start small, like a whisper growing into a song. The more she wrote, the clearer it became. Her biggest growth happened when she pushed herself just a little beyond her comfort zone. Jake noticed her change, too. He teased, "Who is this bold Emily I keep seeing? Next thing I know, you'll be running the coffee shop." Emily laughed, feeling shy but also happy. One afternoon, a customer came in with a worried look and said she was nervous to start a new job. Emily listened and shared her own story about facing nerves. She did not try to sound perfect or act like she knew everything. She simply said, "It's normal to be scared. Just try one small thing. If you mess up, you can always try again." The woman's eyes got brighter, and Emily felt a special kind of joy from helping someone else see hope. Each time a new challenge arrived, Emily took a breath and remembered her good moments on stage. There were still hard days. Sometimes, she felt doubt creeping back and her voice shook again. But now she had proof that fear did not have to stop her. When invited to the next speaker class, she offered to help lead a warm-up activity. Her hands trembled, but when Mrs. Parker nodded in encouragement, Emily remembered her journey. She looked around the room and saw faces just as nervous as hers used to be. She used her story to help others feel brave, even making them laugh with a small funny memory about her first class. Family and neighbors saw the new confidence in Emily, too. Her smile came easily, and she spoke more freely during friendly talks, no longer hiding her thoughts behind silence. She even signed up for a community play, agreeing to say a few lines in a small role. Before, she would have thought, "Not me." Now, the thought was, "I can try." At night, Emily sometimes whispered thank you to herself before sleeping. She thanked her own courage, the people who cheered for her, and that first moment when she saw the woman in the video speak her truth. All the old negative thoughts still existed, but they were much quieter now. In their place lived a new voice, gentle but strong, whispering, "You are brave enough." Each new step, each small act, helped her remember that confidence is built, not born. Emily learned it was always hers to grow, no matter how many times she stumbled or faced new fears. As weeks passed, Emily noticed not only herself but also other people were changing because of her new courage. At the coffee shop, customers came up to her more often. Some asked for advice about their worries or talked about their own challenges. Emily listened carefully, remembering how much it had meant to her when someone believed in her. She began to share her story, not just about her big speech, but about all the small steps before it, the shaky voice at her first class, the stumbles and mistakes, and the tiny wins that led to bigger confidence. Jake asked Emily if she would help him prepare for a presentation at his work. They sat together in the park with his note cards. Emily showed him the breathing exercises she had learned from Mrs. Parker. Jake tried them, looking a little silly at first, but then he laughed, and his nervousness faded just a bit. Emily said, "Nerves are okay. They show you care about what you're doing. Just keep going, one slow breath at a time." When Jake gave his talk and did well, he thanked Emily for her help, and she felt proud not just of him but also of herself for making a difference. The community center asked Emily to speak at another class, sharing what she had learned to people just starting their journeys with public speaking. She remembered how scary her first day had been, so she tried to make things easier for the new people. She smiled and greeted each person. She told them that practice was more important than being perfect and that everyone in the room had something good to say. When she shared her story about forgetting a word during her big speech and laughing instead of freezing, many of the new speakers looked relieved. Emily could see their shoulders relax and their smiles grow wider. Feeling even braver, Emily bought a simple camera with money she had saved. She made short videos on her phone about building courage and learning to speak up. She filmed from her kitchen after work, talking honestly about her fears and how she grew from each small step. She showed her practice, her messy notes, and even her mistakes. She wanted people to see that bravery was not being fearless, but showing up anyway, even if your hands shook. She posted her videos online and soon messages started arriving from people she had never met. Some said her videos helped them try new things. Others shared stories about their own scary moments. Emily always wrote back, "You're not alone. Every tiny step matters." Her family joined in, telling friends about Emily's journey and watching her videos at the dinner table. Even the new worker at the coffee shop watched her channel and began speaking to customers more easily after listening to her advice. Emily realized that her voice now carried further than she had ever thought possible. She was making a real difference, not just to herself, but also in the lives of neighbors, friends, and even strangers. Emily sat in her room one evening, surrounded by little thank you notes and emails from people she had inspired. She thought back to the old days, before she found her voice, when she never would have guessed she could help someone else become braver. She saw now that every step, the nervous classes, the speeches, the mistakes, had been leading here. Emily smiled gently and whispered to herself, "I did not just change my own story. I am helping others change theirs, too." The power she had found in herself kept growing, and she was excited to see what new paths her steady, brave voice would open next. Emily rose early on a bright, crisp morning, sunlight filling her small room. She stretched and opened the window, breathing in the new day. Her world felt bigger and brighter than before. Each sunrise now felt like an open door, not just another part of a routine. The mirror showed the same brown hair and careful eyes, but the way she stood revealed the true change. Her shoulders were back, her eyes sparkled, and her smile came quickly and easily. The voice inside her that once only whispered doubt now sounded calm and sure. Walking down Maple Grove's Main Street, Emily saw familiar faces, some she once avoided because she did not want to be noticed. Now she greeted them with a friendly wave, stopping to chat with neighbors and regular customers. There were still small nervous moments, but she learned nerves were part of being alive, not a sign she should hide. She shared simple jokes and stories with anyone who asked. The people around her grew to expect warmth and encouragement from her, because she made it a habit to live openly and kindly. At the coffee shop, life was busy as always. Emily helped run the morning shift, training new workers with patience and understanding. She saw a bit of her old self in the shy girl who spilled milk or the boy whose hands shook when customers crowded in. When they failed or worried, she reminded them, you don't have to be perfect. Just keep trying and trust yourself. That's how we learn. She saw them improve and grow steadier each week, and each time, Emily felt proud of the small part she played in their journey. Emily kept making her online videos, sharing stories about facing fears and learning from mistakes. She read the messages sent by people from all over. Every thank you and every brave story inspired her. Some days, her heart still beat too fast before recording or speaking in a new place, but she knew now those feelings did not mean stop. They meant go on, grow forward, and keep connecting with others. Even those anxious moments had a place in her new, fuller life. Her friendship with Jake grew deeper, built on true listening and support for each other's dreams. Together they tried new things, small bike trips to new towns, open mic nights at the library, and even helping organize the town festival. Whenever Emily hesitated, she would remember how far she had come. She knew that falling down could never stop her for long. Each next step felt stronger because of the last. At the end of a long day, Emily sat by her window, a warm cup of tea in her hands, watching the lights of her town blink on as the sun set. She felt the quiet joy of real success, not just the kind measured by applause or compliments, but by the feeling inside that she was free to be herself. All her hard work, every nervous start, every small word spoken in courage had turned into something lasting. She knew she would always be learning, and that sometimes worry would return. But now, she welcomed each challenge as a chance to grow. Her new habit was hope, a belief in her own power to change her life, and to help others do the same. Emily looked forward to tomorrow and every day after, ready for new moments, new voices, and new stories. The world could be uncertain, but she was certain of one thing: she carried her courage with her, and it was enough.